Dan Bilzerian's moral code keeps him on track. That's what he told Patrick Bet-David in an interview a few days ago. That moral code is going to be something we're going to try to examine on today's episode of the reality show. Yes, why we're talking about Dan Bilzerian is, I'm sure, a question that many people ask. I know at least two, if not three, of the panelists on today's show are asking that question. The simple answer is that, again, you hear his views and you think, okay, there are people like that under bridges everywhere. But this guy has millions and millions of followers, people who listen to him, people who take him seriously. And I'm sure Candace Owens' name is gonna probably come up during the show. But a few days ago, we did a show about Candace Owens, and I said during the show, like I was having second thoughts during the show because in Candace Owens' case, which I don't think is Dan Bilzerian's case, it seemed in the video we were discussing like she might be actually losing her mind seriously. And I don't say that I don't like the insult of, when you disagree with somebody, you call them crazy. I think you're letting them off the hook. If they're crazy, why are you judging them? It's they're like they're not in control of their mind. In her case, I thought that might be the case, and yet I look at the comments section, and last I looked, we were at nearly 300 comments on that episode, and many of those comments, not most, but many, were defending her or were criticizing us for not taking her seriously enough while she goes on a journey from Zionism is a pedophilia ring to Jews, Mossad killed Kennedy, to something about homosexuals that I'm not even sure was a clear statement. She just threw the word out there. And yet, yeah, again, look, even when we talk about her on our channel, like somehow so many people defend her. The same, I assume, is going to be the case when we talk about Dan Bilzerian, but we will be talking about him, and that is what we are gathered for here today. We're going to watch some of that interview, but just generally before we get started, James, I believe you were. My notes here say you were the first ever Instagram follower of Dan Bilzerian. Is that true?
I would not have paid this guy 2 seconds worth of attention were it not for the assignment today. Honestly, he is an empty, worthless. You know, the reason why he's popular is similar to the reason, and initially why he was popular is similar to Andrew Tate and similar before that. Let's put it this way, to Paris Hilton. Now, I don't want to insult Paris Hilton because she, to my knowledge, has not said these vile anti-Semitic things that this uh, entity has. I haven't been aware of anything really awful that she believes like this guy has. But initially, this guy was famous for being famous. He has a rich dad. He was on the gambling scene. But look, he's got muscles. He was surrounded by all these women in bikinis. He had a gambling issue. He did drugs and alcohol. He started a company that sold vodka and CBD, that is to say, a marijuana derivative product, through inhalers. Now he says he's moved over to nicotine. So he went from hedonism, he says, to, famous for just being a cool guy, who's got women with bikinis around him, and he gambles and drinks and smokes pot. Okay, young people are like, hey, how cool. I want to be like that. I want to have this cool lifestyle. But he's, in effect, he began like Paris Hilton, famous for being famous. But now that he's seen the light, Razi, he's now considering converting to religion. Moral compass is important. He's now not chasing women in numbers. He believes that monogamy is the natural state of things. He's wants to read the Quran. He's thinking he might convert to Islam. And so now he's getting a moral compass, don't you know? So he swung from being a hedonistic, thoughtless, who gives a crap what this guy would think anyway. He's never achieved anything. He's never done anything. He's not a smart guy. What has he contributed to the world of thought? What value does he offer that I would exchange any value for? Nothing. Zero. Zip. Zilch. Nada. He is a non-entity. So why anyone even cares what he thinks is quite beyond me. But now he's saying the most outrageous things that do put him on the fringes of the anti-intellectual racist right. We've seen it before. You know, Jews and homosexuals control the media. Every anti-Jewish conspiracy theory you can think of, they were behind the Kennedy assassination. Don't you know? Oh, because Lee Harvey Oswald's killer was a Jew, and that's sufficient evidence in his mind to show that the whole thing was, you know, this Jewish plot. Similarly, Jews were they knew, at least they knew about 9/11. They may have been involved, don't you know? So every anti-Semitic conspiracy theory he just buys into, because, you know, after all, the Jews are parasites. They contribute nothing to the world. This is what he says. The Jews are parasites. They contribute nothing to the world, but they do control our media, and they control all of our media to the point that you can't even say he is a victim. He has been made victim. Can you believe it? With all this anti-Semitic, anti-Israel stuff going on today, he claims victim status when he criticizes Israel. The man is an anti-Semitic, racist, mystic collectivist piece of garbage. And I would have said something worse than garbage, but I think my quota for
You can say something worse. No, yeah, we said
tough shit.
the
This
kids.
guy is a worthless piece of shit.
Daniel, you're young. Now, you're young, but at a point where you know the things that Dan Bilzerian did to make himself admired by young men, I think, as he said, you know, he's over that. And you know, in a sense, yeah, sometimes people, you know, have their youthful indiscretions that maybe go on beyond beyond their youth. And now he's in his 40s and he's trying to become a thinker. What's your impression so far? And that's before we start playing the clips.
Well, I didn't know much about him before this. It was interesting watching him. While I was watching him, it reminded me of one episode of The Simpsons where there was a cult that basically took over Springfield, and they had a classroom. They had like a religious classroom, and so they asked several questions, and Bart always answered, "Our dear leader." Dear leader was always the answer. And when I listened to him, the Jews pretty much replaced the phrase "dear leader" because behind pretty much any question he has been asked, he either implied or directly said the Jews are behind it. And yeah, I mean that, you know, James mentioned anti-Semitism. I mean, th there is, you know, there is asking questions, as Candice Owens says, and there is this, what we'll see, basically saying that, yeah, the Jews are behind everything. And I'll just only follow it up with and also, so we won't talk much about PBD, who is doing the interview. I think Patrick Bet Davis is his full name. But something that happened later in the video that I found really interesting is, you know, Dan Bilzerian, whenever he talked about the Jews, he was sort of like, you know, they are controlling everything. They have all the power. They are just grouping together. They always help each other. And so what was funny was whenever PBD replied to it, he was like, "Yeah, that's good. How can we do that?" Which reminded me of an anecdote from World War II, and I don't know if it's true. I saw it in a meme, so it might not even be true. But apparently, you know, Nazis were really obsessed with the Jews from the negative aspect. But apparently, Japanese were sort of viewed it from that different aspect. Like they, you know, they heard the sort of like Jews are powerful, they are controlling the world, they have all the gold, and they were like, okay, how can we get on that train? How can we, you know, get that? So I just found that really funny from the interview. Because I was
Yeah.
actually going into the interview, I really hate PBD from all his other appearances, but he, in some of his pushback, was a bit better than I expected. If there is, and I think he still has, PBD still has a little bit of this like he sort of like wants to succeed and doesn't focus that much on like blaming other people. But yeah, he's just providing platform to Dan is bad
Yeah,
enough.
and
But
I have to say, while watching this, I thought, it might be worth a separate episode just about how Patrick Bet-David is conducting the interview, which is really, again, first of all, you give a platform to somebody like this, that's a choice, and then the way you choose to engage with him is another choice. Thank you, Dave Goodman, for the super chat. Dave says, "Who gave you such a great idea for this show?" Yes, this idea came from Dave Goodman. So Daniel, James, and viewers, send your hate mail to Dave and not to me. And yeah, look, okay, we should get to the clip, but I will say, again, he became famous just by posting on Instagram pictures of him in really nice houses with pools and lots of bikini clad attractive young women. And he likes guns. He has as Jerry Lawler would say, he has muscles in places where we don't have places. And he's like, this classic Susie said it pretty well here. Let me see. Yeah, Susie says, "Not sure who this Dan person is, but from what I gather, he makes Andrew Tate look like a feminist." Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if I'd go that far, but yeah, and they're friends, by the way, as he mentions in this interview. And it says something about the culture where, people who don't go in the direction of who, like are young men who rightfully don't like the mainstream ideas that basically tell them that they're evil because they're men, uh, end up admiring a Dan Bilzerian who clearly, as you can see, gets to his 40s and becomes this. Let's roll the clip. The interview clip, not the other clip.
If you are an advisor for them, let me read some of these tweets. Muslims aren't the problem. The open borders and motherfuckers and the media attacking nationalism, pushing DEI, transgenderism, and destroying moral values are the problem. August 4th. If you don't put America first as a U.S. politician, you are committing treason. Supporting Israel is bad for America. Netanyahu is a convicted war criminal, and Israel is not our ally. We fought way too many wars for Israel, and we certainly don't need to give them any more money. July 25th. These idiots have ruined movies. Everything they put out is literally propaganda. And then all of a sudden, we got scripture here. For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Is this recent, comments you're making about Israel a recent thing, or have you always had these beliefs?
It's more recent. I didn't really realize what a problem it was until recently, and then everybody was scared to say something about it. My brother told me, like, you can't say anything about it. They'll fucking kill you. Like, everybody basically said that I couldn't say anything about it. And actually now they're like literally like trying to like kick me off the board of my company because of those tweets. So, like, shit. Yeah, I've definitely had a lot of like negative pushback, a lot of my Jewish friends, but I don't give a fuck. It's like one of
All
those
right,
things.
wait. Okay.
I know that
All
it's
right. I
right.
know we want to get through a lot here, but I have to stop because there's a bunch here. When we did the recap of Mark Pellegrino's debate with Dave Smith, Mark was saying, and he was saying it during the debate, that Dave Smith was throwing like 80 things at him in a minute. And yeah, this guy, talks out of his ass at record speed. So first of all, Netanyahu is a convicted war criminal. If you don't like somebody, that doesn't mean they have been convicted of a crime, even if you think they should be. Convicted war criminal, that's a factual statement that is factually incorrect. He's not been convicted as a war criminal. I don't know. Maybe in some show trial in Iran, they said, okay, let's do a trial. But no, he's not a convicted war criminal. That's one thing. Disliking him, there are ways to express that you dislike somebody that are not, making up bullshit. Also, you can't talk about this. Literally, all of mainstream culture is anti-Semitism is mainstream now. This is what he's saying, kind of what most people are saying. He's just saying it in a bit more of a Dan Bilzerian kind of way. Um, yeah.
Does he
Yeah.
read the newspapers? Has he seen television? Does he watch the BBC? Has he read The Guardian? Has he read the New York Times? Has he been to a university classroom in the West? I mean, people are saying it all the time and everywhere. We're covering people who say it in extreme fashion. There are people who are celebrated for saying it. I mean, what is he talking about? And then, of course, I love his use of the indefinite pronoun they. Everything they do, you see. Whoa, that is right there. The stink of racism is already starting to come off them. Everything they, all of them do is dot, dot, dot. The man is obviously out to lunch epistemologically, psychoepistemologically, and ethically. And ethically, he never understood ethics in the first place, when even in his hedonistic time. And now his alternative is religious type ethics and dogmatism and outright collectivist mystical racism. And that's what we're going to get from him from now on, I think. I mean, he's taken the other side of the coin that we objectivists know so well, right? From going from emotionalist, subjectivist, hedonist, straight on over to the other side of dogmatic, collectivist, absolutely. It's the moral decay, he says, that's the problem. Well, yeah, there is a moral crisis, and he's representing both sides of it, frankly, going from the hedonist to the dogmatist side, going from chasing women in bikinis side to a racist collectivist worldview. One sounds like he's religious and moralistic. The other sounds like it doesn't give a crap. They're really both sides of rejecting objective morality. And that's what this guy is a poster child for. He wouldn't know a moral principle if it bit him in the rear end.
Thank you, Laura Seto, for the super chat. Laura Seto says, but Razi, didn't you hear there was proof that a small kugel emerged intact from under the rubble of the South Tower, LOL. Well, first of all, that's a spoiler we haven't gotten to the 9/11 part yet, but it does remind me, I don't know why it reminds me, spoiler maybe, reminds me to ask, I want to ask people who are watching live, if you've watched Game of Thrones, the whole all the whole thing, uh, who do you think is the most evil character in the show? James, don't answer yet. I'm going to ask you this after we get some answers, but please let me know in the live chat. Even if you don't participate in the live chat, normally, if you've seen Game of Thrones, let me know. There's going to be a Dan Bilzerian related point at some point, I promise. I want to get the answers first. So we'll get to Daniel. We'll play another clip, and at some point we'll get back to this. Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have mentioned most of the points I was gonna make. Yeah, the fact that he mentions, you can talk about it. I mean, that's what everybody has been talking about since it happened. It has been dominating the news. Again, you even have the X, Twitter that basically allows anything to be on. You have people like Jackson Hinkle spreading their propaganda every day there. You have people spreading Hamas propaganda. You have videos of what Hamas has done there, or what's the fabricated stuff that's supposedly going on in Gaza. So yeah, the fact I think he mentions quickly after that his Jewish friends don't like him, and that he might be kicked out of his company. Again, if you're a dick, yeah, people will, like, I don't know what he exactly, like, these people are the same people who say stuff like, if you talk shit, I'm gonna beat you up or something like that. But apparently, there will be physical consequences if you do, but there should be no consequences of how people treat you when something like that happens.
Yeah, I hear some black people, if you just call him the N-word all the time, they might stop being friends with you. I mean, this guy is literally talking about, he's not even doing it's Zionism, not anti-Semitism. He's saying Jews, and then he's like, oh, some of my Jewish friends, they don't like that.
Yeah, I'm amazed that he has Jewish friends at all. I mean, at one point in the interview,
I don't think he does.
I bet Dave Smith is one of them.
Right. Well, see, that's it. But I'm surprised that they would have a problem with it. I mean, if his friends are of the Finkelstein variety, right, then why should we expect them to hate him? But on the other hand, he had said at one point in the interview that he knew since he was a child that the Nazis got a bad rap. I'm not exaggerating. Now, he does say, look, to equate all German people with Nazis is wrong, but no one ever did that. I've never heard of anyone doing that. But he's trying to mitigate when he's discussing the Nazis in that way. So I have a hard time believing that this guy had Jewish friends in the first place, since he's had apparently childhood sympathy for German Nazis.
Well, with people like that, you can't really trust them. And actually, I'm gonna walk back on the fact that he doesn't have a Jewish friends, because he was asked by PBD, have you always had these views? But as most people in the West, you only care about things after they happen. So he probably only got interested in these ideas after the October 7, after he saw some people defending Israel and he had to step in. But despite it being recent and him being a busy guy, he knows everything already. He knows about yeah, and I'll only mention, when they talk about I hate these people. It's so hard to actually research, because when you say they, I don't know what I'm looking for. At some point, he mentions the fact that they made up the 40 beheaded babies. Well, what does they mean? What am I searching for? And I'll talk about that specific claim a bit
Maybe he
later.
means non-binary people.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave Goodman, for the very generous super chat. Dave says, people often ask when learning about the Holocaust, how could so many legitimate people turn so nasty and irrational? We're seeing it take place now with Candace Owens and Dan Bilzerian and Tucker Carlson, Patrick Bet-David, etc. Yeah, and by the way, I don't know if we're going to get to this clip, but he does say he's America first. He has a problem with immigrants. He's a Trump supporter. So yeah, remember that. Look, I understand why pro-Israel people would prefer Trump to Kamala. But bear in mind, this is a part of your movement if you are a part of the Trump movement. I also want to quickly repeat my request for answers to who is the most evil character in Game of Thrones. We've gotten a few answers. Daenerys, a surprising answer. The Night King, Littlefinger, Jon Snow, and I think that's it. But if I missed one, please let me know. We're gonna give it a few more minutes. Let's watch another clip, and then I'll get to why I asked that.
Yeah, just quickly to correct you, I think what he said about Trump specifically was that, this is a tactic many of these people use, saying, I hate all politicians, but if I have to choose, I'm gonna pick Trump, which just means they are fully like Trump supporting. They do like his policies. They do like what he stands for. And hiding behind, they hate all politicians. Well, are you an objectivist? Are you a capitalist? Are you for completely divorcing the economy from the state? Is this what you're saying? No, they like what he stands for. They just have this sort of, similar to America first, they just have this sort of like floating abstraction with like nothing to actually being behind it.
Oh no, he explicitly advocates America first and not in, let's say, in an objectivist egoist sense. He explicitly declares himself to be a nationalist opposed to immigration. So he's a nationalist. He's, in my view, a racist, and he makes plain that he's in favor of the kind of Christian nationalism, even if he's not officially a Christian, the kind of Christian nationalism you hear from the right. And he is very much like Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes. They are spreading anti-Semitic tropes, believing that, quote, Jews and homosexuals control the whole media. It says something about the anti-intellectualism of the right. The anti-intellectualism of the right is bound to spring the most poisonous, vile kind of creatures. And that is unfortunately what's happening more and more and more.
All right. I really want to get to this Game of Thrones point, but I will wait. Let's hear some more from Dan Bilzerian.
And the fact that everybody else is scared to say it makes me, feel obligated to be vocal about it.
Why do you think it's the right thing?
Because I know that they're a fucking parasite. Like, they provide the U.S. absolutely no value. They've done so many things that, would constitute, an act of war against us. I mean, USS Liberty, Lebanon Affair. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on and on. But I think they knew about 9/11. I think they had JFK assassinated. The first thing that he wanted to do, right before he died, was make APAC a foreign entity, and not allow them to have nukes. And then all of a sudden, this fucking guy's dead, and Jack Ruby, who is Jack Rubenstein, I mean, it's just like, and then you just, I don't know, man. I can't ignore all the shit that they've done. They sold our secrets. Netanyahu lied to us about weapons of mass destruction. We fought all these fucking wars. My friends have died over there. And I just look at what they provided
first
us
of all,
with.
he does this thing these people do, which is he uses the word think. I think this, I think that. No, that's not what the word think means. Also, he basically lists things that happen that are bad or he thinks are bad and attaches them to the Jews. That's all there is to it. The Jews are responsible for America going to war with Iraq. The Jews knew about 9/11 in advance, which is a thing, we heard after 9/11, almost as soon after 9/11 as soon after the Al Ali hospital incident. We heard about the 500 deaths there. We heard after 9/11 that there were no Jews, which of course is a complete lie. But once you put it out there, it's out there.
Oh my
Prove that it's
God, is he
wrong.
the most sickening thing you've ever heard in your life? I mean, he is despicable in his thoughtlessness, mindlessness, racist emotionalism. I mean, it is absolutely disgusting, this guy. They have contributed nothing, meaning what? The Jews collectively, Israel in particular? On the our daily objective, I cited some facts. Tel Aviv has been ranked the fourth most tech-friendly city on earth. The Google CEO has said that Israel is the most business-friendly, technology-friendly place on the planet, apart from America. I cited the number of Jewish recipients of the Nobel Prize. Jewish people have an outsized, Israelis do, an outsized proportionate impact on contributing to science, technology, industry, trade, across the board. And he has this obviously racist, and he starts out of the chute with this racist statement. They contribute nothing. They give us nothing. Now, okay, what did we discuss on the TDO today? How Ireland and Morocco have decided to buy military equipment from Israel. Well, some of the more anti-Semitic countries in the world think that there are things that they can have a win-win trade with Israel about. And this guy says that Israel, and maybe Jews in general, have contributed absolutely nothing. That's what he starts out with, that they're just parasites.
I wonder. Yeah, I wonder if Dan Bilzerian will boycott Israel if it turns out they have really good cocaine. But Daniel, and then I will get to the Game of Thrones point.
Yeah, I mean, something. So we actually got a comment under, I think, our Candace videos talking about basically that we didn't refute any of the points she had made. But the thing with conspiracy theories, there is nothing to refute because they do not provide any evidence. It's usually just, well, isn't it weird that this happened? Isn't it weird that this happened after that? There is no way to refute that. There is no evidence provided that I can refute. So just to quickly run through the list, USS Liberty. So that's not specifically like a conspiracy theory, but it was a big mistake on an Israeli part. But a mistake or something like that is not a declaration of war. Israel didn't declare war on the US by doing that. Ship was there, they accidentally bombed it, and it was a huge problem. It was a huge problem between the USA and Israel. But like finding a conspiracy theory behind it, or finding that, or saying that the United States doesn't have a backbone if it doesn't do. I mean, mistakes like that happen, and if someone is, it's hard to like talk about it on a world stage. But if someone is your ally, you don't nuke them if something, a deal goes wrong or something bad happens, or if they elect a different leader that you like, you don't break off all relationships and everything. There is, there is still value there. They knew about 9/11. Again, like what am I even supposed to do with that? They got
Who's
JFK
they,
assassin.
by the way? Did he mention who? Is it all the Jews?
Today, it's all of
Oh,
them.
come on. All Jews are, there's a giant committee that meets and all Jews are let in on it and only Jews know it, but all Jews know it, don't you know? And every time you point out that, Professor Finkelstein or something, hey, wait a minute, there are Jews who, self-hating Jews or anti-Israel Jews or even just pacifist Jews. No. It's all part of a monolithic cabal, Razi, because we all know that all Jews are in on it.
By the way,
They
somebody I forget who it is, but somebody Jewish tweeted. This was years ago, but it was memorable. Something about the committee where we decide who the next U.S. president is going to be, and then some neo-Nazi replied to him, "OMG, you're admitting it." So you never know. Um, all right, so
Wait. So sorry, there's a long list.
oh yeah,
And also,
continue.
Bonnie mentions that Israel paid damages for the USS Liberty. They did, but again, it doesn't. Obviously, damage has been done. Lives have been lost. But yeah, they
An
did offer reparation.
intentional act of war, like this guy claims. That's the big thing. They were still able to work something out. Would Israel really attack intentionally its main ally in the world when it has so few? I mean, come on, it's insane. And how do you refute Candace Owens or this guy on the Kennedy
Yeah,
assassination?
and just quickly, now I have the Kennedy assassination. So this was and this is a point I've heard a lot. And when I researched it, I was surprised because they usually at least have some basis of like reality, and they just take something out of proportions. But apparently, they say JFK wanted to make APAC a foreign agent, which is there is this thing called FARA, Foreign Agents Registration Act. Basically, if a organization takes money from foreign government, they have to register in the U.S. government. APAC doesn't take any money from any foreign. And also, this didn't happen. JFK didn't want to make AIPAC a foreign agent. There was a separate one, American Zionist Council, that he did want to make, and he actually basically he said they would be forced to register. But again, these are separate organizations. AIPAC was under the umbrella of American Zionist Council, but they are much different. And and they also, grew apart. But again, just like they just say this, and no one refutes them. And again,
Well,
it's
something is so thin that what you're saying, like Candace Owens said, one of the fathers of Zionism came from the same region that these Frankists came from. Is that really your evidence? He had an ancestor who came from this region, and therefore QED,
yeah, I'm not that far from that either, by the way, so I'd be careful.
you might be part of, and here you are on ARCUK. See, it just proves Israel is all a giant Frankist conspiracy, don't you know? Or similarly with the JFK assassination. If the guy who kills Jack Ruby, now, the guy who kills Lee Harvey Oswald, now Lee Harvey Oswald was a communist. He'd been to the Soviet Union and Cuba. And so it's hardly surprising that he tries to kill the president. But if the guy who kills him is Jewish, well, don't you know that's all the evidence in the world we need that it's part of the worldwide Jewish conspiracy to kill JFK? What? I mean, there's not even evidence. It's worth, I mean, I would call it arbitrary. I mean, maybe there's something lower than arbitrary, epistemologically speaking, but there's nothing to refute, as you say. These people just put two facts that have no necessary connection together, and then just assert as if there's some kind of a logical conclusion we can draw from it.
All right, there is a Jewish conspiracy to bring up Game of Thrones on this show. It's one Jew conspiring with himself. I want to read some of the answers, and again, it could be that I missed some in the chat, but I'll read what I caught. Christian says the most evil one, not Tywin. I understand Tywin as bad as he may be. Then Lorisetto says Sir Jamie. Christian says Jon Snow, 3 question marks. That's in response to, I believe it was Ram who suggested Jon Snow. He is a hero, though he is not selfish enough. Okay, yeah, Ramsay Bolton was mentioned twice here. King Joffrey was mentioned. If I missed anybody, sorry about that, but okay, it is time for me to make that point. But James, you saw Game of Thrones, right?
I am not a Game of Thrones scholar enough to tell you who the most.
But have you seen all eight seasons?
I have not seen all 8 seasons. I've seen
Oh,
some
I
of
don't
it.
know
I
why I
mean,
assumed
I
you
can't
did.
claim to have. It just never really. I never really became maniac to it. I'm sorry, Roz. I can't do a Seinfeld with you or a Rome with you on that. It's
We
not
will
a.
do that. By the way, we will do on this channel, I think at some point, probably behind a paywall, a show about Game of Thrones. But considering the number of answers we've gotten here, I think um, it might not be that popular a show. By the way, Tenebris says it here, Danny went full Hitler in the end. Absolutely not. You should watch that show when we do a show about it. And I completely disagree with that. Although maybe that's what the author was intending. It didn't come out that way. But the most evil character on Game of Thrones is the High Sparrow. The High Sparrow was committed, philosophically committed to evil. He was a philosopher of evil. He took religion seriously and applied it. He did the theory and the practice like nobody else in the show. I mean, it's difficult because the author makes it clear. And by the way, if you haven't read Alejandro's article on our Substack about Game of Thrones, you should. The author makes it clear that he doesn't think anybody can be fully morally good, and that's kind of the problem with that show. That's it's
That's why I would have to be a scholar of the show like you are. I mean, know the characters in and out because it does seem like they're all kind of mixed. Everyone's got mixed motives.
Well, not everybody's mixed. Everybody's either mixed or pure evil. Like there are a few who are so yeah, you think of Ramsay Bolton and you think of King Joffrey and you think who could be more evil? Well, the people who are more evil are the people who have thought it through and committed to that. And there's one scene where the High Sparrow sits, I believe it's with Queen Marjorie, and he tells her about how he got to where he got. And he said, yeah, I had money. And one night, we had some sort of an orgy, I think, with lots of wine and lots of women and friends and everything. And then I woke up and I'm like, this is all disgusting. And then he went to religion. Now, the fact that you wake up from an orgy and with a hangover and whatever and think it's disgusting, great. And that's kind of where Dan Bilzerian is seemingly waking up from, and Andrew Tate also seemingly waking up from. And Andrew Tate became a Muslim. Dan Bilzerian is considering Islam, much like in the world of Game of Thrones, where there is there's a mixture of different types of evil, but there's nobody fully good. Dan Bilzerian and Andrew Tate and anybody like them out there in the culture doesn't have the good as an option. Like there is it is out there. We're trying to put it out there, but of the things you see in mainstream culture, you have different types of bad, and going from hedonism to religion, and I would dare say the worst of the religions, at least in the way it's practiced today, is somehow not surprising, and this is one of those things where
Well,
Game of
ultra
Thrones
sexist.
kind of
It's
led
ultra
the way for those two.
look at the cell features of Islam. It's ultra sexist, anti-woman. It's anti-gay. It's men, 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 macho, macho, macho. Let's grow that beard. Now, one does not have to. As you pointed out, the masculinity has been under attack. Men, as such, have been under attack from contemporary feminism, in my view. But the response to that is not to go mindless. The response to that is not to go hedonist. And because guess what? You're not really answering the moral question. And you'll end up doing that flip like he's going. He's going from being hungover at the orgy, right, to saying, oh gosh, I'm disgusted with myself. I should have had higher standards and that's a waste of time, or I'm hurting myself or something. And the answer to that is not to, okay, I've found a religion now that's sufficiently sexist and muscular, manly enough to compensate without me losing my audience of young men who think I'm just the best thing in the world because I was on yachts with women with bikinis and so forth.
Yeah.
Talk about pathetic anti-intellectualism. Talk about
he wakes up with this hangover from life and blames the women and the alcohol rather than
Yeah.
the ideas, even if they're not fully thought through, ideas that led him there. All right, should we listen to a bit more of the High Sparrow Dan Bilzerian?
Yeah, just quickly. So, like many of Dan Bilzerian's followers from the Game of Thrones, I only remember the sex scenes, so I cannot really say anything about this. But just quickly, we're gonna skip a few minutes ahead. And also, just so people know, this interview is about 2 hours long. We went about 40 minutes in, but they started talking about Israel before they sort of like talk about his lifestyle, a little bit about Islam. But they will be skipping a large parts. And we might skip a little bit again a bit later. But for now, let's go.
Solution, meaning if Israel's the enemy, then if let's just say you don't do anything and everybody in the Middle East unites to take out Israel, do you think the Middle East is better without Israel? And do you think the world's a safer place without Israel?
100%. It's not even close.
Okay, tell me why. Why do you think?
Give me an argument otherwise, please.
But
give me one argument why the world would be better off with Israel. Let's just start with that. One thing. Give me one thing.
Have you ever lived in the Middle East?
No.
I lived there for 10.5 years. It's a very it's not as like here. You can sit here. You can be an atheist. You can be an agnostic. I can be a Christian. He can be a Jew. He can be an LDS, Muslim. No problem. We can coexist here. You can do that in Israel. You can do that.
I mean, not really. They're operating apartheid right now. Everybody's not living equally.
Not at the level of Iran. Not at the level of what Iran is doing. I mean, in Iran, if you're thinking what Israel is doing out of control, do you know how much money Khamenei's families made? Do you know how much money they've taken? They have 200.
I've never been to Iran, but I've been to Dubai. I've been to Saudi. Like I've been to UAE. So like, and they're all Muslim. They seem to be operating fine.
I would say Iran's slightly different than. But go back to it. So okay, so you think the Middle East and the world would be a better place if Israel didn't exist?
Yes.
Okay.
Israel's committed, so many terrorist attacks. They're stealing land right now. They're operating in apartheid. They're currently committing a genocide on Palestinians. Like, do you believe in the genocide they're committing?
I think they're fighting for themselves and they're defending themselves.
Do you think that's defense?
Well,
when 1,200 people died, and of which the 1,200 you've killed and admitted that you've killed a lot during, your Hannibal direct.
I would tell you this.
All right.
I
All right. We're allowed to swear on this show, right? We've decided. Okay, I'm gonna read the super chats and then I'm gonna go to you guys and then maybe I'll calm down and reply, and if not, I won't. Thank you, Knows Too Much, for the super chat. Knows Too Much says mainstream media has a clear pro-Palestinian bias, and the Biden administration is certainly not pro-Israel. Yet somehow Israel controls the media in the U.S. Laughable. Yeah, absolutely on point. And Knows Too Much, thank you for another super chat. Knows Too Much says Tate, Sneeko, and Dan, grifters converting to Islam for dollars. Who's Sneeko?
He's like a light version of Andrew Tate. He basically changes his views after every conversation he has with another person.
All right, we'll have to look him up and do an episode about him as well. James.
I mean, it's hard to even get your head around. Saudi Arabia is cool, contributing. They're a wonderful place, but not Israel. I mean, honestly, where does he get this idea? Where is he being corrupted? He hasn't, and what's immoral here is that he's stating and advocating a position while evading demonstrable fact. I just pointed out the contributions of Israel just on one level, or the Jews in general at one level. But most shocking of all is that it is a clear call for genocide. This guy would have, 8 million people slaughtered, Israel destroyed, and that would be okay with him? Well, I guess maybe would he give them a chance to emigrate, go back to Poland, like some of these racists say? Or would he just slaughter? Because that's exactly what Hamas and Hezbollah want to do, simply slaughter and wipe out the millions of Jews in Israel. And to him, wiping out Israel off the map, he could just talk about it and then accuse Israel of genocide. Do you think what they're doing in Gaza do you approve of their genocide in Gaza? One of the most surgically way too timid in terms of its surgical attacks. It's to even say that shows just how off the deep end epistemologically this guy is. This guy has anti-judgment when it comes to facts. He refuses to find facts. And he apparently has no problem with the extermination of millions of Jews in the region or their forced expulsion. So he's calling for a genocide. He himself, right there, was calling for genocide and accuses what Israel is doing in Hamas, the surgical strikes that they're doing in Gaza, what Israel's doing to Hamas as genocide. That's the level of insanity, madness that he is. He is a racist who advocates genocide. And he calls self-defense genocide. He is a sickening, disgusting racist who starts out saying Israel and Jews contribute nothing and ends up by saying Israel should be wiped off the map. No, this guy is beyond. I wouldn't scrape him off the bottom of my shoe. I'd burn the shoes. This guy is vile. Upset. Yeah, if I let myself go for another few seconds here, Rosie, this guy is truly, truly a scumbag.
I
don't
agree.
know how to even put it.
I mean, it's completely ridiculous the way he talks. You know, Middle East would be safer if there was no Israel. I mean, again, what does that like what does that even mean? Yeah, the dictatorial nations would be safer to oppress their citizens a bit easier if they didn't have some sort of opposition in the region. Yeah, it would be easier for Arabs to kill all the remaining Jews in the Middle East and make the peace if Israel was there. Like, again, it means nothing. It was also funny because he said, "Yeah, I've been kind of to Middle East. I've been to Dubai, United Arab Emirates." What do you mean? It's like me saying, "Yeah, I've been to America. I've been to California. I've been to Los Angeles." You just said the same thing like a couple times. And also when he said Saudi Arabia, what it means is he's probably been to Riyadh or something. Again, like just because you go to like one city in the region doesn't really mean much.
You know what I found particularly disgusting? This guy is of Armenian heritage. His father is an Armenian immigrant to the United States. And Muslims, Turkish Muslims, tried a genocide only about 100 years ago against his people. He says Islam is all that and all wonderful. But wait a minute. The community he comes from, Christian Armenians, were the subject of an actual attempted genocide by Muslims only about 100 years ago. This guy's got to sit down, read a book, open his goddamn eyes so that he can figure out what's going on in the world, because his people were actually victims of a genocide by Muslims only about 100 years ago.
Well,
yeah, I'd assume that like Candace Owens, he reads a ton of books, by the way. But I don't know which ones.
Well, there's many outs, but he did comment on it. You could say, you know, he probably denies Armenian genocide or something like that. But no, he did comment. He actually, Armenian genocide is another reason why he hates Israel, because Israel refuses to acknowledge the fact that Armenian genocide has happened. And I researched that, and unfortunately, it seems like that's true, and it's pretty. Yeah. It's pretty sad.
Because just like we said on TDO, and just like we say all the time, Israel wants to be loved by its enemies who hate Israel for existing. And the only reason Israel won't recognize the Armenian genocide is to appease Turkey. I don't know why they keep, this is absolutely horrendous. Of course, there's that, and then there's Dan Bilzerian supporting actual genocide against the Israelis.
And
the
again,
fact that Israel doesn't recognize the Armenian genocide does not justify that.
And again, it's this sort of like controlled outrage, as James said. Like, there are people who actually did commit the genocide, and they are just people who refuse it happened. And again, the fact that you are specifically focusing on that part, again, it's just outrageous. And Yeah, I think that was mostly what he talked about. But yeah, it's really. And then he went through the basic points. Israel is doing genocide, it's stealing land, it's apartheid. We don't have time to again debunk these ideas
Yeah,
again.
the whole thing did seem like he was reading talking points written for him by Owen Jones in kind of short bullet point, manageable by Dan Bilzerian kind of format. Anyway, let's keep playing because there's a couple of points that I also want to address later on.
Wait, actually, since we don't have much time, I'm gonna skip much further because I think there were points we wanted to talk
Are
about.
you getting to the BLM and the rape video?
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna do the second one first, and then the other one should be right after that. So let's do it.
They're better than you. You believe that Jews think they're better than everybody else.
It says it in their Bible.
Okay, but you believe they're better than everybody else. Okay.
I didn't say they're better than everybody else.
They think.
According to their scripture.
Okay, but what if...
And if you look at how they operate, right, like they literally caught people raping Palestinian prisoners, and there was riots. But the riots weren't because they were raping the prisoners. The riots were because they felt like they had the right to rape the fucking prisoners. That's why they almost had a fucking civil war, because they felt like they had the right to rape these prisoners. They felt like that was okay because they weren't Jewish. So, when you have a society that operates like that, you're going to have fucking problems. And they're not the fucking most moral army. That's all fucking bullshit.
So this is really, if you see what a Nazi this guy is. He's a Nazi in his propaganda methods as well, because this is a lie that has been debunked completely. And there is a video that a pro-Hamas person would say, look, this video shows soldiers raping a Palestinian. Of course, we've shown that video multiple times here, and it shows nothing. It shows soldiers picking up a detainee, and then 3.5 days later, doing something that we don't know what it is, and it's almost certainly not what they're accused of. Again, the interview that we saw shows Dan Bilzerian raping Patrick Bet-David as much as that video of the soldiers shows the soldiers raping the detainee. This is, but this is what this guy pushes. Literally everything that has ever been said about Israel or Jews that is negative, he will repeat. And again, if this interview had gone on for 10 hours, he would have found 10 hours worth of material to talk about the Jews.
This guy is a walking anti-Semitic cartoon, isn't he? Every negative attitude you could possibly Jews used babies for their blood in their religious rituals, don't you know? This guy would believe any anti-Semitic trope, anti-Semitic lie out there, because what he attributes to them is every evil attitude they enjoy, don't you know? Just gang raping Palestinians just because they're Palestinians. They're just so evil. I mean, he has no problem ascribing the most evil motives to Israel as such without any evidence, mind you, and then ignoring and evading the evidence of atrocities and jihadist activity on the other side. I don't know if we'll get to that. But on the other side, there's no possible way that Muslims in the area could ever have a bad motive. But any possible bad motive, every evil, malicious, sadistic intent that you could imagine can be automatically and without evidence ascribed to Jews or Israelis. This guy is vile.
All right. I know like ARCUK's plan to get millions of views involves us ending this show more or less on time so that Dan Krauserian can go out and start his Instagram and post with bikini-clad ladies. So let's play another clip quickly and comment on that, and then we'll wrap up.
Anything to you, or you're like, let me support him?
I mean, I think it's pretty funny that it wasn't a problem until it was against Israel. It wasn't a problem with BLM. It was fucking encouraged with BLM.
Always a problem with
bullshit.
BLM.
They fucking encouraged it. They let them burn down police stations. There was no repercussions.
I'm not talking mainstream.
No, I'm talking about
Yeah.
our government, our media encouraged that shit, right? They encouraged it when it was BLM. Like they literally burnt down police stations and it was fine. The mayor came out and was like, you know, no problem, no arrests, no big deal. We don't give a fuck.
Right.
Take down statues, destroy buildings, burn cop cars, do whatever you want to do. But the moment it was Israel, now all of a sudden,
Why do you think they were
students
okay with
get
that?
the shit beat out of them. They get arrested. They get pepper sprayed. They get fucking maced. And those are peaceful protests. BLM was not peaceful, but it was fine because it wasn't criticizing Israel. What does that tell you?
What? Let me ask you a question.
It tells me that Dan Bilzerian is a piece of shit, but I've been told that throughout this show. You remember during the BLM riots, there was this video of some people in an apartment, and there's the BLM march going on in the street, and then like somebody throws a rock and the window is smashed, and then they shout at them, "We're on your side, we're on your side," and then another rock is thrown and the other window is smashed. Well, then BLM are on your side. You are the same side of this. BLM came out on October 8th with that despicable cartoon of a paraglider with a PLO flag. They are the same side, and there's a reason why, both sides, this is their method of promoting their views. I've said I do not support generally protesting, especially when you have to block the roads. But even in those protests, like when there's blocking the roads in favor of Israel, that's as far as the problematic part goes. They block the roads. You don't see violence. You constantly see violence in protests that are in support of violent causes. BLM is a violent cause. The Palestinian cause is a violent cause. And those people, they practice what they preach in that sense.
And the legal authorities and the authorities at these universities are giving these protesters a pass. He says that the media gave the BLM protesters a pass. Well, look at all the people giving a pass to these pro-Hamas demonstrators. They're not getting arrested. They're not getting expelled. They're not getting any negative. What the hell is he talking about? And most fundamentally, of course, BLM is on his side when it comes to being pro-Hamas and killing Jews. BLM specifically praised the paraglider. I mean, they had this thing with that cartoon, like you say. Again, it's this far left, far right convergence in hating Israel and Jews. BLM is on your side, dude. Or didn't you notice? Or didn't you notice? And the media, many in the media are encouraging the anti-Israel protesters, and law enforcement is letting them off the hook too. What planet is he living on?
Yeah. Davey Boy says, arrest his barber/hairdresser. I do not comment on other people's hair. Daniel, any comments? I do want to play that other clip, Daniel. I know we were running out of time, but I want to quickly play that. But yeah, your thoughts first.
Yeah, I think you guys summarized pretty well the last point. Something that we didn't get to comment on, but it was mentioned at some parts, and I think it's important to make. He many times he talks about Judaism specifically, and like Bible and the Jews in the religious aspect, and especially when it comes to Israel, the fact that there are different, according to Bible, like Jews are worth more than like other people and things like that. And these are like completely out of place. Like Israel is not some sort of theocracy. The funding documents are not based on the Bible, unlike many of the Arabic states. And yeah, there is no, you of course, as in any democratic country, as in any country that allows parties to form, you have religious influences, you have even parties in the government that do want some sort of preference for some religious aspects. But again, Israel fundamentally is a secular country, and the fact that he so many times like talks about the Jews and the Bible, I think, again, I found really anti-Semitic.
I hate to take the time, but may I just make a comment? The fact that the Torah says the Jews are God's chosen people to him makes it a vile, despicable, racist religion. But the Quran, which he wants to read, and he's considering going to Islam, says kill the infidel wherever you find them. Has he read the anti-Semitic stuff in Islamic sacred literature?
He's
Killed
thinking about reading Quran.
He's thinking about it. Okay, well, when he reads it, he will find that it is a despicable, we're better than everybody else kind of religion. And it calls for violence, systematic violence against the non-believers in a way the Torah does not. I mean, my God, man.
Yeah, he's thinking about reading it, but he already knows that it's a religion of peace. He did mention that. He doesn't need to read it to know that. But a few years ago, when I uh, did more of the behind the scenes role and wasn't much on shows, I wanted us to do a show about Dan Bilzerian, and I think I even offered to be on that show. And we ended up not doing it. This was around the time when he was accused of his weed company being scammy, of him scamming investors, because it turned out that I don't remember if it was most or a lot of the money was spent on marketing, and marketing was Dan Bilzerian hiring mansions with pools and bringing bikini-clad models to take pictures with him and presumably with some weed. There was that. There were questions about his claims about poker, like making $60 million a year, which is not what the great poker players make. And there were comments by some of the great poker players about his comments about poker not being not showing great knowledge there. Daniel is our resident poker expert, so he can let us know if that's correct or not. But yeah, I the 60 million a year does sound interesting. But there was also this clip that he himself posted of what he did when there was the shooting in Las Vegas in Mandalay Bay a few years ago.
If you hear snaps, that means it's coming by you. If you hear a crack.
I heard a crack, dude. Hey, the security's boning up.
I don't care. I don't know who you are. Jesus Christ. You want help?
Dude, don't fucking, you know better than that.
I'm just saying, I don't know who the fuck you are. I just showed you my bread. That's
Yeah, I mean, if you thought this guy's despicable for the crap that comes out of his mouth, you hear gunshots there. This is gunshots from the Mandalay Bay Hotel down into the whatever festival was going on there. And he comes up to a cop who is attempting to, to figure out what's going on and help end it. And he says something like, "I'm a cop, give me a gun." And of course, the cop doesn't do that. But yeah, and again, this is a video that he posted of himself. This is not somebody showing him doing something that is still horrible and should be pointed out. But this is him showing what a supposed hero he is, when, of course, this was a shooting that I don't remember, but something like 50 people died, right, James? This was a really horrific shooting.
And they still haven't really found out the motive of the shooter. But it is a crime to impersonate a police officer in the United States. He is guilty of a crime, and he is not making the situation safer. And he did not help, and nor did any of his offer to help. Could it have possibly helped the situation? No, all he was doing was adding to confusion for the poor law enforcement officers trying to protect innocent people in Las Vegas that day. So he is despicable and immoral on many, many, many levels. As I said at the beginning, I see no value to this entity at all. He is a worthless being, and I don't know why anyone would pay any attention to him, except some thoughtless young man who somehow thinks that, like you say, that lifestyle is what's glorious. Being a mindless hedonist is glorious. No, he appeals to the worst elements on both sides of the debate. He really does. And he is a worthless, despicable human being.
Daniel, thoughts on that and parting thoughts?
I mean, I think it just summarizes him. He's a despicable human being. He just, does whatever gives him clout. He does everything to become popular. That's why, and I think that's what he said also about Trump. So he must definitely view himself in him that Trump is in the presidency just for money and fame. So I think he's doing a little bit of projecting. But I hope I never have to talk about him again.
I can't promise that, but what I can also not promise, but promise to try, I think it was Tragedy and Comedy who said earlier in the chat, please do a show on Seinfeld. We could do a show on Seinfeld because several of us on this channel have seen Seinfeld multiple times. Some of us have seen Game of Thrones several times, and with Game of Thrones, the reason I want to do that is because there are so many moral questions, and to the author, there are seemingly no moral answers, and so I want to point out again, it's such a great show. I know you guys disagree because both of you started watching it and didn't finish it. But some people agree, like Alejandro, who I'm
I
sure.
just paused it. I'm gonna finish it.
Okay, I'll finish it. I'll finish it. Especially
All
if you want
right.
to talk about
Well, it'll be worth it just for the show that we do about it, because I think it is interesting to examine it from an objectivist perspective. I'm also gonna tell you if I don't remember, I may have mentioned it on the show, but who I think is the closest to morally good, and how characters that I really liked in the first time, the second time I watched it, I started disliking and seeing that they are actually not good. But anyway, that's as positive an end as we can put to a show about Dan Bilzerian. Uh, thanks for bearing with us, all the viewers. Thanks, James. Thanks, Daniel. If you have any last thoughts about Dan Bilzerian, you want to keep talking about him from another hour or two, we can stick around. Uh,
no
if
thanks.
not, if not, thanks. We will be back with the Daily Objective tomorrow and every day, including weekends. So we will see you then.